ever been totally floored by someone's intense dedication, like to something that seemed maybe a little unusual?
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen that kind of unwavering commitment, right? Makes you wonder what's really driving it.
Absolutely. And today, we're diving into a story that really gets to the heart of that. Takes us back to ancient India. It's quite a case study.
We are exploring the tale of Jambuka, an ascetic figure.
Yeah, his life and, let's say, extreme practices are documented in Buddhist texts, mostly from the Jataka tales.
Right, those ancient stories Buddhists used to teach lessons, moral and spiritual point.
Exactly. Wisdom through stories, basically. Think of them like that.
So these sources are like little windows into ancient beliefs, ancient ways of behaving. We're looking at the time around Kassapa Buddha and then later Gautama Buddha's time.
The regions of Anga and Magatai, specifically.
Okay. And our mission for you listening is to try and understand what pushed Jambuka towards such extreme asceticism.
Yeah, and to follow the consequences of his actions, as the texts tell it. And, ultimately see what insights we can pull out about human nature, belief systems, that kind of thing.
All right, let's jump in, but maybe not straight to Jambuka's big public displays. The story actually kicks off earlier.
Right. It begins with generosity and jealousy.
Okay. So set the scene.
We're in the time of Kassapa Buddha. There's this wealthy householder, a patron really. He regularly supported a monk living at the local vihara, the monastery.
Consistent giver.
Known for it, very much so. Then a visiting arhat arrives.
An arhat being someone spiritually advanced, high level of understanding.
Exactly, a very respected figure. And this householder, he really rolls out the red carpet for this visitor.
Goes above and beyond, you mean?
Totally. The text listed out fine food, a big piece of cloth for robes.
Nice.
You even plan to get a barber for him, arrange a comfortable bed. Real hospitality.
Okay, so picture the resident monk now, the one who usually gets the support. How's he feeling watching all this fuss over the visitor?
Well, the texts are pretty clear. He has a very negative reaction.
Uh-oh.
Feels overlooked, maybe, taken for granted. Why is this temporary guest getting the 5-star treatment when he's always there?
That classic what about me sting. Very human.
It really is. And it gets to him. So much so that he actually leaves the vihara.
Just walks out.
Yep. Couldn't stand seeing what he felt was preferential treatment.
And the visiting arhat, what does he do?
Well, tellingly, he also leaves.
Yeah.
Very next morning. Doesn't accept any more hospitality.
Suggests he sensed the tension, maybe?
It strongly suggests that, yeah.
Yeah.
He likely picked up on the resident monk's jealousy, the awkwardness, and just removed himself from the situation. Very perceptive.
So the householder's left, guest gone, probably clueless at first about why. But the resident monk's jealousy, it doesn't just stop there, does it? He does something else.
No, it festers. He comes back to the vihara the next morning, goes through the motions, but with a less than kind intention.
Okay.
He knows the visiting arhat might still be nearby, or at least within earshot.
And he does what? Makes a noise.
He bangs the gong. Loudly. The one used to signal morning activities.
Although deliberately disruptive.
Pretending, or maybe telling himself, the arhat was lazy, still sleeping, needed waking up. A calculated move. A bit spiteful.
Okay. So then the householder shows up again, expecting his guest probably.
Right. And he sees his resident monk and asks, hey, where's the arhat?
And the monk lies.
Completely. He's this dishonest story. Oh, the visitor was lazy, still asleep, despite all the morning hustle and bustle.
But the householder's no fool. He knows arhats are disciplined, right?
Exactly. He sees right through it. Based on what he knows about arhats, their dedication, he figures out the visitor must have left because of the resident monk's attitude. He gets the underlying dynamic.
Interesting. But he doesn't call him out on it.
No, shows remarkable restraint, actually. He just continues his generosity, offers the resident monk a special meal.
The meal intended for the arhat.
Yes. The text makes a point of the care-taken clean bowl, delicious food. He even says this was for the arhat, maybe hoping the monk would pass it on or feel a pang of guilt.
But the jealousy is still there. What happens to the food?
Tragically, he doesn't deliver it. On the way, the text says he thinks if the arhat gets this amazing meal, he might get too attached to this place. Petty, right?
Wow.
Throws it away, just discards the whole offering, lets his jealousy win completely.
And this act, throwing away food, it's not just wasteful in the story. It has major repercussions, karmic consequences.
Huge ones. The texts state that because of this act, his samana dharma, his monastic practice, which spanned 20,000 years.
20,000 years.
Yes. All that practice couldn't protect him from a negative rebirth.
Just from that one act of spite.
It underscores a key point.
Yeah.
Unchecked negativity bad intentions can undo years of effort. Even seemingly small actions matter, especially the intention behind them.
20,000 years wiped out by jealousy. Wow. Okay, so where does this bad karma lead him? Not to more nice, I'm guessing.
Definitely not. The text says rebirth in Avicii hell for one Buddha, etc.
Which is?
An unimaginably long time, an era of intense suffering, a direct result of his actions towards the Arhat.
That is heavy. But the cycle continues, right? After Avicii.
After that immense period, he's reborn, this time in Rajagaha during Gautama Buddha's era, and into a wealthy family, which sounds good. But his past karma manifests in really, really strange ways, right from birth.
Okay, this is where Jambuka himself enters the picture. And strange is putting it mildly, right? His behavior is not typical.
Not at all. From day one, the texts say he refused to sleep on a normal bed, refused regular food. Instead, he consumed his own bodily waste, excrement.
As an infant?
As an infant, persisted right through childhood.
Good grief. The parents must have been beside themselves. How did they explain it?
Well, initially, they probably rationalized it, maybe thought it was just some weird phase, childish ignorance he'd grow out of.
Understandable, I guess. Hard to grasp the karmic roots of something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. It shows that principle of karma actions, especially bad ones, have effects that follow you.
But it wasn't a phase. He grows up, becomes an adult.
And continues. Stays naked, sleeps on the ground, keeps eating excrement. Imagine the difficulty for the family. The social stigma must have been immense.
So what do?
They eventually decide, look, he's just not cut out for normal household life. His behavior is so extreme, maybe he belongs with ascetics, specifically the Ajivakas.
Ah, the Ajivakas. They were known for really intense practices, weren't they? Self-denial to the extreme.
They were. So the parents might have thought maybe they'll understand him, or at least tolerate him. It seemed like a fit, in a strange way.
So they take him to the Ajivakas?
Offer him for ordination, essentially. Hope this is a better path for him.
And the Ajivaka ordination sounds pretty rough itself from the descriptions.
Oh, yeah. The texts describe it. They put him in a pit, neck deep, put smooth sticks under his armpits,
Ouch.
and then plucked his hair out with a coarse palmera palm brush.
Yikes. That's intense. A painful initiation. Reflects their whole philosophy, I suppose.
Extreme self-mortification, yeah.
Okay, so he goes through this. His parents invite the Ajivakas for a meal the next day. A goodwill gesture.
Seems like it. But Jambuka, his old habits resurface immediately.
How so?
The other Ajivakas get ready to go out begging for alms, the standard practice. Jambuka refuses. Says, nope, I'm staying here.
That must have raised eyebrows. Alms round is fundamental.
They tried to persuade him, come on, Jambuka. But he wouldn't budge, so eventually they just left him there.
And alone, does he stick to the Ajivaka way?
Or once they're gone, the texts say he secretly goes to the latrine.
Oh, no.
And eats excrement again. The outward ascetic versus the inner compulsion, big disconnect.
The others must have noticed he wasn't getting food the normal way.
Right. They actually sent food back for him.
And he refused it.
Refused it. Claimed he already had food.
Which would make them ask, where?
Exactly. And his answer was super cryptic, just, I found food here.
Vague and unsettling. No wonder they got suspicious. How did they find out the truth?
Their suspicion grew. They decided they had to watch him.
Yeah.
Secretly.
Spied on him.
Basically. Hid themselves, waited, and they saw it. Saw him eating excrement in the latrine.
Oh, wow. The reaction.
Utter horror.
Yeah.
Disgust, obviously.
Yeah.
But also deep concern for their reputation.
Appearances.
Big time. They were worried, what if the followers of Gautama Buddha, their rivals, essentially found out? It would look terrible for the Ajivaka sect. Reputation management, even back then.
So, damage control. What did they do about Jambuka?
Faced with this situation and the potential PR nightmare, they expelled him, kicked him out. Couldn't risk being associated with that.
Okay, so he's out on his own again. Does he change his ways? Give up the act?
Quite the opposite. He doubles down on the outward show of asceticism, finds a new, very public stage.
Where?
A public latrine area, a place people would normally avoid. He finds a big stone slab there with a hollow in it. That becomes his spot.
And he develops a routine, not just eating waste openly.
No, it's very performative. There's a duality. Nighttime, when no one's watching, that's when he consumes the excrement.
And daytime?
Daytime, he puts on a show, adopts this really elaborate, extreme-looking posture to impress people.
What did it look like, this posture?
The texts describe it. One hand gripping the stone slab, one leg raised, foot on the other knee. facing upwards,
Yeah.
mouth open.
Mouth open. Why?
We'll get to his explanation.
Yeah.
But yeah, a very striking, uncomfortable-looking stance,
Mm-hmm.
clearly designed to make people think, wow, look at his endurance.
And people saw this in the latrine area. What did they think?
They were curious, naturally. They'd approach him. Some would even bow, thinking he was this great, ascetic, enduring hardship. They'd ask him, why are you standing like that?
So he had a story ready, an explanation for the pose, the open mouth, the location.
Oh, absolutely. He claimed he was a wind eater, said he didn't need any other food.
A wind eater.
Yeah, and the one-leg thing, he claimed the earth couldn't handle his power. If he stood on 2 legs, it would tremble. Seriously. Also claimed he never sat or lay down. Just constant, extreme austerity. That was the claim.
And people bought it.
Mostly, yes. The texts point out their gullibility. They were impressed by the appearance of extreme self-denial. They started bringing him offerings, generous ones, regularly.
But if he's a wind eater, what does he do with the food offerings?
He'd refuse them, say no, noting that would break my practice, which of course only made him look even more dedicated in their eyes.
But he didn't turn everything away. There was a little loophole.
A tiny one. To keep the donors happy, maybe. He'd accept a minuscule amount of ghee, clarified butter, or sugar, just on the very tip of a kusa grass blade.
A blade of grass.
Yeah. He'd say, this tiny bit is enough for your merit, implying he was doing them a favor by taking even that much. Master manipulator, really.
It's an incredible performance, and he kept this up for how long?
55 years.
55 years of living this double life, secretly eating waste, publicly posing as an extreme ascetic.
Astonishing, isn't it? 55 years. It really shows you the potential for hypocrisy and the lengths people might go to for public acclaim.
Wow. Okay, so after all this time, 55 years of deception, things change. The Buddha arrives on the scene.
Right. This is the turning point.
How does the Buddha even become aware of Jambuka?
The texts say the Buddha has this practice of observing the world, scanning with his net of knowledge, compassionately looking out for beings. And one morning, before dawn, he perceives Jambuka, sees his situation.
And the Buddha, being enlightened, sees more than just the surface, right? He understands the potential here.
Exactly. He foresees that helping Jambuka, revealing the truth, won't just benefit Jambuka. It will lead many other people to understand the Dharma, to find well-being, a ripple effect.
A teaching opportunity for the whole community, essentially.
Precisely. So the Buddha decides to intervene personally. He goes himself.
Okay. What happens when the Buddha walks up to Jambuka?
He approaches Jambuka at his usual spot, by the stone slab, and he just addresses him directly, by name, Jambuka.
That must have shocked him, this revered figure knowing his name.
Jambuka's reaction isn't reverence, though. It's suspicion. Defensive. Who are you calling me by my name? Like, don't you know who I am? The great ascetic.
Right, the ego is still strong, so the Buddha makes a simple request.
Asks for a place to stay for the night. Basic hospitality.
And Jambuka, the supposed renunciate.
Flat out refuses. No space here. Not very hospitable for an ascetic.
The Buddha persists, though, gently.
Always gentle. He uses an analogy. Says, ascetics seek out other ascetics, like birds of a feather, trying to find common ground.
Does it work?
Not immediately. Yeah. Jambuka shifts tactics, starts judging the Buddha's appearance.
Oh, so?
He looks at the Buddha and says, basically, are you really an ascetic? You don't have the gear. He means the ajivaka stuff, water pot, smoke catcher, sacred thread.
It's stuck on the external symbols.
Completely. You don't look the part, is his implication.
And the Buddha's response focuses on the inner qualities, right?
Exactly. It's metaphorical. He says, essentially, I carry those things internally. True asceticism isn't about props. It's about inner discipline, wisdom.
Does Jambuka get it?
Nope. Still fixated on the externals. He actually gets angry that the Buddha doesn't have the symbols.
Angry? Wow. He's really invested in that outward show.
Deeply. But the Buddha remains calm, just repeats his request for shelter. Incredible patience.
So the Buddha then spots a cave.
Points to an empty cave nearby, asks, who lives there? Jambuka says, nobody.
And the Buddha asks,
can I stay there then? And Jambuka, maybe just tired of arguing or maybe just indifferent, says, yeah, fine, whatever, gives permission.
Okay. So the Buddha goes into the cave, settles down, and the night that follows is eventful.
Very eventful, extraordinary, really. This is what's just to crack Jambuka's facade.
Happens.
First watch of the night, the 4 great kings arrive. These are powerful deities, guardians. They light up the cave with their presence.
Jambuka sees this.
Oh, yeah. He's watching, filled with wonder, thinking, who is this guy?
And it doesn't stop there.
Nope. Middle watch, Sokka arrives. king of the gods, even brighter illumination.
Wow.
Then, final watch, Mahabrahma comes, a really high-level deity. His radiance lights up the entire forest.
Incredible. Jambuka, Mr. I'm the greatest ascetic, seeing all these guards visiting the stranger in the cave. He must be blown away.
Utterly astounded. He's been doing his act for decades, and these guys never showed up for him. So in the morning, he has questions.
Finally approaches the Buddha with some humility.
Filled with awe, intense curiosity, he asks the Buddha, who were those beings? Why did they come here last night?
And the Buddha tells him plainly.
Plainly, says they came to attend to him, to pay homage, clearly showing his own spiritual standing.
Jambuka must ask the obvious question then.
He does. Are you greater than them, than Saka, than Brahma? These gods who ignored him for 55 years.
And the Buddha's answer?
Affirmative. Yes, he is greater. He even says Saka, the king of the gods, is like his attendant, his helper.
That must land like a ton of bricks. The stark contrast. The celestial VIPs flocking to the Buddha, while Jambuka got nothing.
It shatters his whole illusion, his self-importance, decades of outward show, completely bypassed by real spiritual power. It plants serious doubt.
He must be reeling.
Absolutely. He voices his astonishment, but why do they never visit me, despite all my austerities? This opens the door for the Buddha to finally confront the core issue.
The deception.
The deep, long-running deception. The Buddha doesn't hold back now.
What does he say?
He lays it bare. Tells Jambuka, I know you've been secretly eating excrement. I know you sleep on the ground even though you claim you don't. I know you're naked. Reveals the whole hidden truth.
Confronts the hypocrisy directly.
And connects it to his past. Points out how Jambuka held wrong views back then, the jealousy, the spite that led to his negative rebirth, and these current strange compulsions.
Says he's still holding on to those wrong views now through this deception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then Jambuka, maybe desperate now, asks, what did I do wrong?
And this is when the Buddha reveals the past life story, the jealous monk.
Yes, with compassion, but clearly. Recounts the story of the resident monk, the spite towards the arhat, discarding the food.
And the consequences, the 20,000 years of practice wasted, the time in a Vici hell, the rebirth with these tendencies.
The whole karmic chain laid out, linking past actions directly to present suffering and behavior.
How does Jambuka react to finally understanding the root of it all?
Immediate remorse, deep shame, fear. The full weight of his past actions, his present lies, just hits him. Profound regret washes over him.
And physically, he can't keep up the act anymore.
No. The text says he collapses, basically. Sits down in a squatting position. Humble, defeated, his facade is gone.
And the Buddha, seeing this broken state, shows compassion.
Immense compassion. Offers him a water robe, a simple monk's garment.
A gesture of acceptance, a new path.
Exactly. Kindness. Offering a way forward. And Jambuka accepts it, pays homage to the Buddha, sits respectfully. A total shift in demeanor.
Ready to listen.
Ready to learn. The Buddha then gives him a teaching, a progressive discourse tailored to him, guiding him step by step.
And the outcome?
Jambuka attains arhatship, full enlightenment, complete with the Padāsampida's deep analytical knowledge of the Dharma, a total transformation.
Wow, from decades of deception to arhatship. And he asks for ordination to formally become a monk.
He does. And the text says his past negative karma, it's exhausted by this realization, wiped clean by the attainment of truth.
So the path is clear. How does the Buddha ordain him?
Simply, directly, powerfully. He just says, come, bhikkhu, live the holy life.
Bhikkhu meaning monk.
Right. And that invitation is the ordination. Instantaneous.
And there's a physical change described too, isn't there? Almost miraculous.
Yeah. The moment the Buddha speaks, Jambuka's old state vanishes. He appears as a 60-year-old elder monk, properly robed with all the requisites, transformed inside and out.
Incredible. News of this must have spread. What about his old followers, the ones who brought offerings for 55 years?
They arrive with their usual offerings. But now they see Jambuka looking like a monk next to the Buddha, and they're confused.
Confused about who's who? Who's the greater figure?
Exactly. Who's the teacher? Who's the disciple? So the Buddha tells Jambuka, clear up their doubts.
Put on a different kind of show, this time based on truth.
Yeah, you could say that. Jambuka, now an enlightened arhat, uses his newfound psychic powers, rises into the air 7 palm trees high, the text says.
Wow.
And from the air, he declares, the Buddha is my teacher, I am his disciple.
That would certainly clear things up. A powerful demonstration.
Absolutely. The crowd is amazed. They see the Buddha's power, his virtue, reflected in Jambuka's transformation and testimony. This leads to the final teaching moment.
The Buddha uses Jambuka's life story as the lesson.
Precisely. He drives home the point about outward practice versus inner reality. He says, look, even if Jambuka kept up his extreme act for 100 years with a deceitful heart, it wouldn't be worth even a tiny fraction, a 16th part of the merit of someone with right understanding who skips a meal simply to lessen attachment with a pure intention.
Intention and understanding trumping outward show.
Massively. And he summarizes it in a verse.
What's the verse?
Month after month, a fool might eat his food with the tip of a kusa blade. He is not worth the 16th part of those who have comprehended the truth.
Eating with a kusa blade tip, symbolizing that extreme, minimal consumption he pretended towards.
Exactly. The verse means someone without real understanding, without inner virtue, even if they do extreme external stuff with bad intentions, they don't come close spiritually to even the lowest level of someone who has genuinely realized the truth, like a Sotapanna, a stream enterer.
So it's not about how tough you look or how long you endure something externally.
It's about the why, the intention, the wisdom. That's what matters far more than the outward display. Inner transformation is key.
And this teaching had a wide impact that day.
Huge impact. The texts say 84,000 beings attained Dharma realization right then and there. Shows the power of understanding this core truth.
What a story. So wrapping up this deep dive on Jambuka, it really throws the danger of hypocrisy into sharp relief, doesn't it? And highlights the absolute value of genuine inner change, right intention.
Absolutely. His journey from that deep deception to enlightenment just perfectly illustrates that.
It's a compelling look at how complex our motivations can be, how alluring extreme appearances are sometimes, but also the incredible power of genuine understanding to transform someone.
Yeah, the real aha moment is seeing that true progress isn't the outward show, it's inner purity. Clarity.
It definitely gives you something to think about.
Yeah.
You know, how often might we be swayed by appearances, by dramatic displays of dedication in others, or even in ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
How vital is it to look deeper at the intention, the understanding? What are the little kusa grass blades maybe we rely on in our own lives, mistaking small external things for real inner growth?
That's a great question to ponder. What's performative versus what's truly transformative in our own efforts? Definitely something to reflect on.